Imagine standing barefoot on ancient Australian soil, the air thick with heat, the horizon rippling with mirages. Behind you, a wall of red dust. Ahead, shadows move that are too large to be human. You grip a crude spear, your heartbeat pounding in your ears, and then you see it, a towering 10-foot reptile, eyes glinting like molten gold, stalking you through the dry grass. This isn't a dream. This is Australia. 50,000 years ago, the most nightmarish place in human history. 50,000 years ago, a small group of humans stood on the edge of an unknown continent, staring across an endless stretch of sea and mist. Behind them lay the familiar lands of Southeast Asia. Ahead, a vast, uncharted island that would later be called Australia. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to step into one of the most hostile environments in human history. Crossing to Australia wasn't a simple walk. These were not modern explorers with maps or boats. They were hunter-gatherers, guided only by instinct, stars, and courage. Yet somehow, they built simple rafts from logs and vines, lashed together with animal sinew, and sailed across treacherous waters filled with crocodiles and storms. It was one of the earliest sea voyages in human history, a feat of survival and curiosity that changed the human story forever. Welcome to Before Flame. Fire. If you enjoyed traveling back in time with me, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next journey into our ancient past. When they finally reached land, the first thing they noticed was silence. No birdsong, no familiar sounds of jungle life. Just heat, wind, and the rustle of something huge moving in the distance. The air smelled different, dry, ancient, electric. Everything here seemed exaggerated, as if nature itself had turned the volume up to 10. These early arrivals didn't realize it yet, but they were standing on a continent that had evolved in isolation for millions of years. The animals here were unlike anything else on Earth. Giant marsupials the size of trucks. Kangaroos taller than men. Carnivorous birds with beaks like axes. And somewhere in the swamps, reptiles so large they could swallow a human whole. Australia wasn't welcoming its new guests. It was testing them. Imagine waking up in the dawn light of prehistoric Australia, the red earth stretching endlessly around you, the smell of eucalyptus and dust thick in the air. You hear a low rumble in the distance. At first, you think it's thunder. Then you see it, a shadow lumbering through the haze, easily twice your height. It's Diprotodon, the largest marsupial that ever lived, a massive herbivore that looked like a mix between a wombat and a rhino. But not all giants were gentle. Nearby, Thylacoleo carnifex, the so-called marsupial lion, stalked its prey through the scrub. With bone-crushing jaws and claws sharper than a bear's, it was Australia's apex predator, and you were just another animal in its territory. Then came the Megalania, a 20-foot-long lizard related to the modern Komodo dragon. Its saliva was venomous, its speed horrifying. Humans had never faced anything like it before. Every venture out to gather food or water was a risk. The land was alive, and everything in it seemed to be hunting something else. At night, the darkness brought little comfort. The cries of giant flightless birds, Genornis, standing nearly 10 feet tall, echoed across the plains. Fires flickered as families huddled close, whispering, watching, waiting. For these first humans, survival wasn't about dominance. It was about endurance. Every hunt, every fire, every sunrise was a victory against extinction. Over generations, humans began to learn the rhythm of this alien land. They studied animal tracks in the sand, learned which roots and insects were safe to eat, and mapped the hidden waterholes that could mean the difference between life and death. Slowly, the fear turned into understanding, and understanding into strategy. They discovered the power of fire. Controlled burns helped clear vegetation, attract prey, and keep predators at bay. Firelight became both weapon and warmth, a symbol of humanity's defiance in a world ruled by monsters. Their tools evolved too. Stone flakes became sharper, spears more balanced. They learned to work as a group, to hunt, to signal danger, to protect their young. Cooperation became their greatest weapon, stronger than claws or fangs. In time, they stopped seeing Australia as a nightmare, and began to see it as home. The humans who first arrived here wouldn't just survive this place. They would transform it. And in doing so, they would set the stage for one of the most extraordinary human stories ever told. Because this land of monsters was about to meet the most dangerous creature of all, us. Prehistoric Australia wasn't just wild, it was a kingdom of giants. Imagine stepping into a world where every shape on the horizon might be alive, and bigger than anything you've ever seen. The first humans who arrived here didn't find gentle creatures grazing in the sun. They found megafauna, massive beasts that ruled the land, air, and water. The diprotodon, the world's largest marsupial, could weigh over 2 tons. These gentle, lumbering herbivores moved in herds across open plains, feeding on leaves and shrubs. From a distance, they might have seemed peaceful, but if startled, their sheer size could crush a person without effort. To hunt one was nearly impossible. To avoid one was survival. Then there was the procoptodon, the giant short-faced kangaroo, standing nearly 10 feet tall, built like a heavyweight boxer. Its forward-facing eyes gave it depth perception, allowing it to kick and strike with deadly accuracy. Even a single blow could shatter bones. But the plains weren't the only danger. In the shadows of forests and wetlands lurked Thylacoleo carnifex, the marsupial lion. Unlike any predator today, it combined a koala's climbing skill with a lion's power. Its jaw strength was unmatched, capable of puncturing skulls and splitting bone. Fossil evidence suggests it may have ambushed humans from trees, silent, patient, lethal. And yet, the most terrifying of all wasn't a mammal. It was a reptile, Megalania. Imagine a Komodo dragon stretched to over 20 feet long, its scales glistening in the sun, venom dripping from its jaws. This predator could sprint faster than a human and disappear into the bush before striking again. Every rustle in the grass could mean death. Australia's ecosystem didn't evolve with humans in mind. It evolved to challenge them, to remind them they were prey. But humans are nothing if not adaptable. Where other species fled, humans learned. Fire became their greatest ally, and their most powerful weapon. With careful burns, they reshaped the landscape itself. Fires cleared dense forests, encouraged new plant growth, and drove herds into open areas for easier hunting. Over generations, these deliberate burns transformed ecosystems, turning thick forests into open savannas. But this new strategy came with a cost. Fire, while giving humans control, also disrupted the delicate balance that had sustained Australia's megafauna for millennia. As humans spread fire across the land, many large animals found their food sources destroyed. Waterholes dried. Grasslands changed. Slowly, the giants began to vanish. At the same time, humans were becoming more efficient hunters. Working in coordinated groups, they used spears, traps, and fire to corner their prey. A single successful hunt could feed a tribe for days. And every hunt brought new knowledge about the animals, the land, and how to survive it. To the first Australians, fire wasn't just a tool. It was civilization itself, the line between chaos and control. But in mastering fire, they may have started one of the earliest ecological collapses in human history. By the time the smoke cleared, much of the megafauna would be gone, victims of both human ambition and a changing climate. Within just a few thousand years, the giants of Australia began to fade into myth. The great diprotodons disappeared. The Megalania, once a terror of the plains, was gone. Even the mighty Thylacoleo vanished without a trace. Some scientists argue climate change played the biggest role, that rising temperatures and droughts destroyed habitats faster than life could adapt. Others say it was human activity, fire, hunting, and the relentless spread of people into every corner of the continent. Either way, by around 40,000 years ago, the age of monsters was over. But their memory lived on, in the stories of the first peoples of Australia. Ancient Aboriginal rock art shows creatures unlike anything alive today. Enormous reptiles, strange marsupials, and hybrid beasts that blur the line between myth and reality. These weren't just legends. They were echoes, cultural memories of the time when humans lived side by side with giants. And even in death, the beasts shaped human life. The bones of megafauna became tools and weapons. The land they once roamed became sacred ground. Their extinction forced humans to adapt yet again, shifting from hunting giants to managing smaller prey, refining tools, and deepening their understanding of nature's balance. Australia was still dangerous, still harsh, still unpredictable, but now it was the humans who stood at the top of the food chain. The monsters were gone. But in their place, something even more powerful had risen: human mastery. Just because the monsters were gone didn't mean life got easier. In fact, in prehistoric Australia, The land itself became the greatest predator. Imagine waking up to a crimson dawn, the air thick with heat, the wind carrying the scent of smoke. The same fire that once protected your ancestors could now turn against you in an instant. With the dry season came infernos so vast they could erase entire valleys. Flames leapt between treetops, and ash fell like black snow. There were no warnings, no sirens, only instinct. Australia's environment has always been extreme, a continent of opposites. Torrential rains could flood plains 1 month, then disappear entirely the next. Rivers that once flowed like lifelines would vanish into cracked earth. Lakes became deserts. Deserts became death traps. And yet, humans adapted. They read the sky like scripture. The direction of clouds, the sound of birds, even the smell of soil told them what was coming. When the rains returned, they built temporary camps near freshwater. When droughts hit, they followed animal tracks to hidden waterholes that only the most experienced could find. Still, survival was a gamble. Crocodiles as long as canoes lurked in flooded rivers. Venomous snakes coiled beneath bark shelters. Even insects carried danger: ticks, spiders, and swarms that could ruin an entire food supply. Every day was a test of awareness. One mistake, one wrong path, one missed signal, could mean death. Yet through this chaos, humans didn't just endure. They thrived. Because the more the land fought back, the more they learned how to live with it, not against it. Over generations, something profound happened. Survival gave birth to spirituality. When you live in a world that constantly tests you, where storms destroy camps and fires devour forests, you start to look for meaning in the chaos. The first peoples of Australia began to weave the land's fury and beauty into story, creating one of the world's oldest continuous spiritual traditions, the dreaming. To them, every rock, river, and star had purpose. The land wasn't just scenery, it was alive, conscious, sacred. Mountains were ancestors turned to stone. Rivers were the paths of ancient serpents. Even the fires and floods became acts of creation, not destruction. These stories weren't myths for entertainment, they were blueprints for survival. Songlines, for instance, were maps encoded in music. By singing the verses, people could navigate hundreds of miles across deserts, recalling every water source and safe path. The dreaming was both faith and GPS, both prayer and science. And at the heart of it all was respect, for the land, for the creatures, for the delicate balance that allowed life to continue. Humans no longer saw themselves as separate from nature. They were part of its endless rhythm. In a world so harsh, that belief wasn't just spiritual, it was essential. As time passed, humans began to master even the most unforgiving landscapes. In regions where no rainfall touched for years, they built complex systems of adaptation, storing food, predicting seasons, and trading across vast distances. These weren't primitive wanderers. They were scientists of survival, engineers of the natural world. They created tools of bone and stone, crafted nets and traps designed for precision, and painted their history onto cave walls for future generations. In some regions, they even constructed fish traps, intricate stone systems that captured fish during seasonal floods, allowing entire communities to eat for weeks. These are among the oldest human-engineered structures on Earth. Australia's first peoples didn't conquer the land, they collaborated with it. Every plant, every animal, every rock had a role. Even death had meaning, feeding back into the great circle of existence. By now, humans had turned one of the most hostile environments in history into a living classroom, a place where endurance, intelligence, and empathy fused into a way of life. But beneath this harmony, change was brewing once again. As the Ice Age drew to a close, new climates, new challenges, and new arrivals would rewrite the story of this ancient land forever. The world was about to change, and Australia would face a new kind of test. For tens of thousands of years, prehistoric Australia was a crucible, a place that tested the limits of what it meant to be human. From the first daring ocean crossings to the final fading roars of the Megafauna, it shaped not just bodies, but minds and spirits. Here, humanity learned lessons that no other land could teach. We learned resilience, how to find water in a desert and food in a wasteland. We learned respect, that nature isn't something to dominate but something to understand. And above all, we learned imagination, turning survival into story, hardship into wisdom, and the vast silence of the outback into a song that still echoes today. Every fire we light, every storm we endure, every connection we feel to the land. It all began here, in a world of giants, danger, and wonder. The people who first called this place home didn't just survive the nightmare. They built a legacy that still shapes human endurance and creativity to this day. Australia was never just a continent. It was a mirror, reflecting both the brutality and brilliance of life itself. So as we look back across those 60,000 years, through fire and flood, through the rise and fall of beasts and empires, one question remains. Would we still survive in the land that once made humans stronger than ever before?